To the Middle East next, where Israel says its planned assault on Gaza City has begun and that troops are already occupying the outskirts. Around 60,000 reservists are being called up as part of Israel's plan to capture the densely populated city. An Israeli military official said troops will operate in areas they had not yet been deployed in and where Hamas is still operating.
We are not waiting. We have begun preliminary operations and the first stages of the attack on Gaza City. IDF forces are already holding the outskirts.
Let's get more from our very own Middle East analyst, Shani Rozanes, who's now in the studio with me. Shani, welcome. Can we effectively say that this operation to take Gaza City is now underway?
Oh, definitely. When I talk to sources in Gaza, they are saying very clearly that they are hearing the bombings. Israel sends robotic explosion machines into several houses and operating several areas in the north and in the south of the Gaza City. It is ongoing, definitely. And what we're seeing is the beginning of what Israel expects will take a few good months. If you talk to military experts in Israel, they predict this operation will go deep into 2026. Israel is now calling at least 60,000 more reservists to duty deployment. So this will be gradual, but the way Israel also defines it, it's going to also be very targeted. And the idea is to maybe put also pressure on Hamas by operating in parts of Gaza where Israel has not been yet.
I did want to talk to you about that because that issue of reservists, the reservists are being called up quickly because Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu apparently wants to shorten the timelines for this operation. So what does Netanyahu want to achieve with this operation and why so soon?
Well, first of all, it's important for Netanyahu, for the world, and mostly for Hamas to take him seriously. He wants the world to believe and he wants Hamas to believe Israel is very serious in its attempt to conquer, occupy Gaza, because only then anything else could work, even if it's just strategy, if it's tactics, if it's about negotiations, whatever it is, he needs to be seen as serious in intentions. It's not so easy, however, to speed things up. There's many challenges that Israel has. First and foremost, the population. We're talking about over 1 million Palestinians. Some of them have already, fled from other parts of Gaza to Gaza City. Some of them are original residents of the city. They need to be, evacuated. I'm not sure how many of them will cooperate. I'm not sure how fast it can go for the Israeli military. There's, of course, also the need for humanitarian support in, giving supply to these people wherever they end up in. That's two things that is very hard for Israel to speed up. And, of course, within Israel, there's a lot of resistance to this move. There's a lot of criticism from the families of the hostages who feel that this might jeopardize the lives of their loved ones. We're talking about 50. All in all, about 20 of them are believed to be alive of the Israeli hostages. So these are some of the things that, Israel would have to tackle before being able to speed up this operation as Netanyahu wishes.
I mean, it's not just the hostage families, right, that are criticizing this plan from the Netanyahu government. You have the IDF Chief of Staff, Eyal Zamir, who has also reported to have criticized this plan, saying that this would be like, quote, walking into a trap, and he's saying that this could harm the hostages. So as you said, if the idea is to pressure Hamas, it is to what end? Is it to free the hostages?
Well, this is exactly the question everybody's trying to figure out. What kind of game is Netanyahu playing? What is he trying to achieve? One option is that he's trying to push because he feels that Hamas is weak. Hamas's concessions or agreement to the temporary deal for Netanyahu is a signal to the fact that they're under pressure, and he wants to leverage that and try to get more concessions from Hamas. Because if we're going for a temporary deal or a partial deal, then the question is, how do you bring back the rest of the 10 remaining living hostages? So this could be one option. This is also about tactics and negotiations game. But it could also be that Netanyahu sees a win in the idea of, he's been saying from the beginning that the only way to defeat Hamas and to get it to completely give in is through military force. And for him, it's also another way to win, just to be stronger and push further, despite the fact this could be endangering the lives of the hostages and the lot of resistance he gets. It is very much helping his base, and he's very much something that his coalition partners on the extreme right are happy to see. Further, inclusion into Gaza.
So this is more political and not so much strategic.
It's also political. With Netanyahu, there's always the political element, and of course, it's part of that. We need to keep in mind also that he has still American backing, and we've seen the Americans, even Witkoff himself, who designed the partial deal that was on the table up until 3 weeks ago, saying now that the Americans are expecting all of the hostages to be released. So as long as he has American backing, Netanyahu is going with that. He also keeps in mind, if you look at Netanyahu, about the idea of occupying Gaza. He sees the response to it, and he understands that the idea of going for a temporary deal and then going back into fighting will be almost impossible. He sees the responses around the world. He sees also Trump himself backing him and trying to get this into a complete surrender of Hamas. This is still very much what Netanyahu and the Israelis are struggling with from the very beginning. They don't really have a plan. Hamas is in such a bind that he has no interest in giving up the hostages because that will ensure its complete demise. So as long as Hamas wants to survive, they have no interest in releasing any, the last hostages that are in their hands.
And what about the 1 million or so people, Palestinians who are living in Gaza City now? What happens to them once these operations enter the city? Where do they go?
Well, that's a brilliant question. Israel is already holding 75% of the Gaza Strip. Most of the Gaza Strip has been completely obliterated. This is a pile of rubble, mostly wherever you go. Gaza City is somewhat of an exception when it comes to that. So Israel would like to see them going to the Mawasi, those towards the southern part of the Strip, closer to Rafah. But we hear a lot of resistance when you talk to Palestinians. I also talk to some of my sources. Many of them want to go west to the coast and try to find refuge there because they say the Mawasi is in inhuman conditions of living. This is a lot of questions, a lot of challenges, a lot of uncertainties still with this operation.
Thanks for coming in to break that down for us. DW Middle East analyst Shani Rozanes, thanks so much.
You're welcome, Pirish.
Meanwhile, Palestinians have gathered in Gaza City to call for an end to the war. People waved Palestinian flags and held banners reading "Stop the war and save us." One protester said the group wanted to send a message to the world that they do not want this war. They want to live and be safe. Amjad Shawa is head of the Palestinian NGO network in Gaza City, and he gave us his assessment from there about the situation on the ground.
I could see that, yes, the Israeli occupational forces already occupy the eastern part of Gaza City, the old city, the big neighborhoods where Israel continues its destruction and daily airstrikes and artillery to these areas. Most of this area was totally razed by these attacks, and still there is so many families were killed under the rubble of their homes because they couldn't move. There was no prior warnings, and we have high concerns of the coming days if the Israel will continue their escalation, to continue their military operation in Gaza, to kill more. And we have, as you and as other humanitarian agencies, we have high concerns about the lives of tens of thousands of people who could be killed, and in the same time, forcible displacement of about 1 million Palestinians to the south area, where it's no space in that area, no infrastructure, no facilities, no tents, nothing. And the Israelis just pushing people to unknown future that it's carrying. And these people are talking about they are already suffocated, starved population, most of them children, women, elder people, disability. This is real time for the international community to act, to stop this military operation, and to go back to ceasefire negotiations in order to have an end for this war.
A number of points you've raised. Let's just pick them up one by one. Let's talk about the roughly 1 million people living in and around Gaza City. Have you received any information from the Israeli military as to where the bulk of these people should relocate to avoid the fighting?
Yes, the Israelis that are sending messages to go to an area called Al-Mawasi, which is west of Khan Yunis, which is overwhelmed by 600,000 people who are displaced from Rafah, from Khan Yunis. And every day, this area is under Israeli attack. It's an unsafe area, and there is no space for any tent to be put there. So there is no space and no safety and no security, no services, whilst the Israel is controlling the aid which is entering, restricting the entry of these aid supplies. No tents is entered Gaza since the 2nd of March. So it's very critical moments that we are passing through these times, and we don't know where to go. Really, this is the fun meaning that we have. Just direct people to Gold Mawasi, and there is no space in Mawasi. It's unsafe, and this is according to international law. It's a war crime to uproot the people from their homes and to send them to unsafe area, which is under Israeli attacks every time.
I mean, whether it's a war crime or not is something that international courts are yet to make a determination on. But just as somebody who heads the Palestinian NGO network in Gaza City, sir, what is the challenge that NGOs such as yours are facing? What are they being able to do when it comes to coordinating help or relief for the people in Gaza City?
As I said, it's very critical moments that we are passing through. This is deteriorated humanitarian conditions. The entry of aid is restricted, and we have risks as a humanitarian is working on the ground. We lost 700 of our aid workers during the war, and the majority of them belong to working with UNRWA and the others from the national NGOs. Our premises, our infrastructure destroyed by the Israeli strikes. We have restrictions of entry of aid, basic needs that we can give and respond towards the people. It's very critical, and there is nothing between our hands in order to give the people. We're just staying with the people and trying our best to serve in health services, in some psychosocial support, tracking some water here and there, and in the same time that for sheltering, we have nothing to give the people.
The Israeli government has said that Gaza City is basically a Hamas stronghold, which is why they're saying this offensive is being carried out. How do you react to that?
This is the Israeli usual claims that they have. Today we have big demonstration in Gaza against the war. We called on the international community in order to act immediately, in order to save the Gazans from this kind of destruction tool, of this killing tool that is continued. Gazans are seeking peace, seeking to have dignity, not to have wars. So it's a real time for everyone all over the world to exert the pressure. Already we have this Egyptian Qatari proposal, which is Witkoff proposal in order to end the war, waiting for the Israeli decision. And while we are waiting, Israel continue its attacks on the Palestinians.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Amjad Shawa, head of the Palestinian NGO network in Gaza City. Thanks so much for joining us, sir.
Well, for more now, we want to go to Dan Stewart. He's with the UK-based aid group Save the Children. He joins us from inside the Gaza Strip. Dan, it's good to have you with us. I understand you're just south of Gaza City right now. We've seen the Israeli airstrikes there today. Can you give us a sense of what's going on where you are?
Absolutely. We're in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza, and we've certainly heard a lot of explosions today. But across the Gaza Strip, life is unimaginable for children right now. It means picking through the rubble, searching for the remains of loved ones. It means going to sleep with drones overhead, not knowing if you'll wake up again the following morning. And those that do face an endless search for food and water. And so for those that survive the starvation and the bombardment, the psychological scars really will last a lifetime. And I was talking to our team who live in northern Gaza, in Gaza City today, and it's really a type of psychological punishment at the moment. You know, many people in Gaza have been displaced many more times than once, 5 times, 10 times. And now they're facing another life or death decision, another exodus to find another patch of scorched earth in the middle of this heat wave we're having here, to assemble a makeshift shelter from nylon or cast off fabrics, or, you know, the wreckage of other people's homes. It's no choice, and there's nowhere safe in Gaza.
Dan, I want to pick up on your teams in Gaza City. What more are you hearing from them, and how are they reacting to this new military offensive?
It's incredibly difficult for them. I mean, they are exhausted and anguished, along with all of the children and families who are living in Gaza City right now. Our teams are in the same situation. They are making these incredibly difficult decisions about whether to flee now or whether to try and find somewhere to stay. But I can tell you that around here, there isn't much space. There are very few services. Save the Children is running nutrition and health clinics, and we're treating hundreds of children a month. But our teams are overstretched and overloaded already. And when we see large numbers of people coming into this area, which looks very likely, it's really difficult to see how we're going to be able to scale up as much as is needed. And of course, we're in the middle of a near total siege of aid coming into Gaza. Save the Children has about 45 trucks worth of aid waiting in warehouses, but we can't get it in because of the blockade and the siege at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned just the sheer numbers here. We're talking about 1 million people living in and around Gaza City. We know children are especially vulnerable. What have you been seeing and hearing since arriving in Gaza a week ago? I mean, a lot has happened in the past 7 days.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what really strikes you traveling through Gaza is not just the destruction, and of course it is catastrophic, but the children and families who are living in this destroyed landscape. Seeing children sheltering under the twisted concrete of former homes, spilling out of the tents that pack the area around where we are now, waiting for deliveries of water because the pipes aren't working. Our nutrition clinics every day are packed with malnourished children who need treatment. And one of the striking things about those clinics is usually you would expect them to be noisy, you would expect children to be crying, but they're almost silent at the moment because children are almost too weak to cry. In addition to that, we're actually really concerned about the mothers.
Dan, let me just ask you, have you ever seen a situation like that where you have a room full of small children and they're all silent?
I haven't seen a situation like that. And, anybody who's spent time with large numbers of children won't have either. And what we do know is that in addition to the children, we're seeing really surging numbers of really malnourished mothers, new mums and breastfeeding women at the moment at our clinics. And what that tells us and what that shows us is that, mothers are putting their children first. Their children are always the first to eat on any given day. And as a result, we've got mothers who are coming into our clinics almost too weak to hold their babies because they're skipping meals in order to put their children and families first.
Mm-hmm. Are you getting any new supplies or aid material in at the moment?
So as Save the Children, we haven't been able to get any supplies of our own into Gaza since the 2nd of March. We managed to get some medicines and other supplies via the UN, but in terms of our own supplies, we haven't got any in since the 2nd of March. And we are overstretched and running out of supplies. It's vital that the government of Israel ends the siege and that we see a full and definitive ceasefire finally, so that we and other agencies can scale up and reach children and families across Gaza.
Dan Stewart with Save the Children joining us from inside the Gaza Strip tonight. Dan, we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Thank you.